Welcome to Photo Finds. I am your host Kevin, and this week we are going to be at SeaWorld. More specifically, we're looking at a couple of new things on the way into the big attraction, of course, that opened this week. We start at the main gates where they have new biometric readers. These are fingerprint scanners, and they replace the kind of lower quality ones that they had previously at the main gate. You see from the map that Antarctica is now a permanent part of the SeaWorld map. We'll take a closer look in here. And it takes up the former penguin pavilion area here as well as the food service. So it doesn't really change the footprint of the park much, but certainly does change its themed appearance, as we'll see. On our way over there, let's stop and look and see that they have Freestyle machines popping up in a couple of different places around the park. And the restrooms at the Atlantis area have been upgraded and recently painted, and you can see that the signs themselves are kind of new as well. This is because Antarctica doesn't have any restrooms itself, and so these will be in higher demand. So here we go around the corner from there. Kraken is to our immediate left and Atlantis to the side behind that. So this is going to be kind of a hotspot area. You see the wall of ice that signals Antarctica up ahead. And I want to draw your attention to this rock over in the corner here. It's penguin shaped. So you have something that looks a bit like a penguin even from a distance. Kind of something to draw you in. So as you can see, it's listed as the South Pole, or the bottom of the world, Antarctica is. Take a closer look at that sign over on the side here, pointing out how far it is to various cities, as though we were at the very bottom of the world. They had some stilt walkers here set up on the opening weekend. Now my visit was not until Sunday, so it was after the opening day itself. Just some general shots of how much effort they put into the rock work and the theming, as you can see around the land. Stroller parking is over to one side. And on the opposite side you have the store, now renamed Glacial Collections. Some opening day merchandise available, as well as general penguin things, really, in many parts of the store. Almost everything was penguin themed, except oddly for fake swords that we saw at one point in the store. Much of this merchandise was around previously when there was penguins here as well, although I don't remember these columns being here like that, so that looked like a new decorative thing. Fill your own Antarctica suitcase, I guess, with things like these penguins down below. And then this was new. This is create a cup that cares, and so you're basically creating a penguin cup the way you would create a Mr. Potato Head. There are the prices, about $16. And then some more of the opening day merchandise. And then as we leave the store, we'll see that they have a kind of interactive app store app kind of game set up here where you try to keep the penguins on the ice. They otherwise want to run around off the edge, off the ledge. So let's take a look around the land a little bit more. There's lockers. So the strollers are over behind this first wall. Lockers are behind this second wall, and the ride exit is over here, as well as the ride photos. So there's the ride photo area. And then the lockers are, there aren't very many of them, and they're fairly large, and they do cost money. Now, it's not a crazy ride, so you won't necessarily need lockers, and they probably understood that. So as you can see, it's a little bit crowded looking around the land. This was mid-afternoon. We'll come back to this wall a little bit later. There are penguins carved into the wall. Here you can see them again, and little tag numbers next to each one of those penguins, and they correspond to these tags in the ground itself. So the idea being that you could look up, let's say this is 13. If we find 13 on the wall, that's the king penguin, and these are the areas where the king penguin lives. So there's 13, for instance, and we know by looking at the ground where their habitat zones are. Okay, the main attraction itself is across the way. We're not going in there just yet. I do like the way it sets itself off color and thematic-wise, because it's not ice like everything else, so it draws attention to itself. South Pole Beverage, some more freestyle stuff, and then our restaurant around the corner from there. I guess we're going to walk along the side. First, they have these themed barricades set up. We're going to show you what the barricades look like from down low, and as well as take you outside the other gate into Antarctica from the other side, so you can see what that looks like. They've got some topiaries set up here for photo taking around this side, and there's your view into Antarctica from the other end. Obviously they've got some trees set up. It looks a little bit like Expedition Everest, actually, in look feel of this part of it. The ground has got this kind of broken stone, or maybe ice flow or ice breaking off from glacier kind of look to it. Expedition Cafe is your new restaurant. It completely replaces the restaurants that was there before. Let's look around the dining areas first. There's the central cashiers, and then the condiment stands, open air dining. And then this doesn't look like much, but it is actually one of the dining halls. It's the air-conditioned one, and it's the better one to go into. Although, oddly, they chose to make these doors pull out towards you, which is hard to do when your hands are full. And then there's a fly fan that turns on immediately, which threatens to knock your tray to the ground because you're holding it with one hand. So it's a somewhat of a poor design, actually, I would say. And here's what it looks like inside that hall. As you can see, it's crowded and cluttered, and they try to make it look like scientists are working there. And in fact, they borrow some of the same ideas you see at Restaurantosaurus at Disney's Animal Kingdom in terms of making it look like a working facility. So there's the final tour around that, and then we'll come back around one more enclosed dining area. There are fans around, but it's not quite as air-conditioned, of course, and then a lot of informative billboards around the side here as well. Couple more around the side to really try to inform as well as entertain. There's the back side of the shop. It has two entrances, and there's that close-up of the South Pole beverages as well as what the machines themselves look like, not the usual red in this case, and then the cup that they're selling in the background here to commemorate the souvenir cup to commemorate Antarctica. So stepping inside the cafe now, this is what it looks like from the outside. As you can see, it is set up in stations. This is called scramble style, for those of you familiar with the restaurant term. If you want something from the Asian station, you go here. If you want something from the American station, you go here. The Italian pasta station, you go here. If someone in your family wants all three, you're going to have to stand in 3 lines. So here's what the menu looks like. In fact, we'll take a closer look here at the menu for just a moment. You can see the American, Italian, and Asian sections. Prices are about $9 or $10 for entrees. And there are kids' meals available for most of them. Actually, for all of them. It is not every single item available as kids' meals. We did like several of the things in the Italian section. And the Asian section was fine. The teriyaki chicken was very sweet and good. Orange chicken was perfectly serviceable. The pepper steak was not as peppery and really not as distinctive as you might have thought. Close-up of the stations themselves. There's what they look like empty, which only really happened. That last picture crept in here. It was taken from the end of the day. I sorted it, however, into this spot where it was otherwise more busy. I like how in the back here they've got plants growing, as if to imply that this is a research station on the South Pole and they need fresh plants. There's the Asian station in action where it's being dished up for you, the Italian station. And there's those plants, which really is there for themed purposes and not much else. And here's what the dishes look like on the plate. So there's the pepper steak. These are kids' meals. That's orange chicken and that's teriyaki chicken. And this is the rope sausage with marinara. You could have gotten it with grilled onions and peppers instead. So from here, let's take a ride on Empire of the Penguin. It has a 2.5-hour long line as we're getting in line. And actually, later when we did come back, this picture was taken a little bit out of order. It said 1:30, and it ended up taking 3 hours. So not always reliable with the wait time, and perhaps that's because there's still some things to shake out in terms of the ride operation. Now, as you can see, you have to be 42 inches tall to ride the wild version. There's also a mild version. Okay, so the queue winds through this kind of foresty area, and we pass by a couple of these sort of pseudo-scientific things just to have props for you to look at as you walk around. In fact, the queue keeps going back to Rocky Point Preserve. This is where the sea lions are, and it's so hot out there. They've got these umbrellas set up. They've got these mist fans set up. They're even giving away free water. In fact, a few moments after this, someone came by giving out Dasani water, so bottled water, also ice cold. So they're aware that this heat can take a toll on you out here in the summer sun. Another one of these research stations, and looking at the sometimes hot and miserable portion of the line queue, it doesn't move very fast until finally we get back into the shade, and we are back in the theming of the queue itself, where we've got these rocks and icicles kind of mingling together in exciting ways. Things are highly themed. I like the blue ice mixed in there every so often, which I guess is a thing in actual Antarctica as well. And then as we get closer and closer, you will find that icicles become a little bit more common, a little bit more water at the very end of the line queue. until we get to the very end. That's the boarding area inside there. That's special access, meaning something like those who cannot wait wheelchair line, I guess. And then a view of the icicles in that last zone just before you go inside. And once you're inside, you go into this little pre-show. Now there are 3 screens on the side here, just like there are 3 screens on this side. And so when the camera zooms forward and moves forward, the whole thing moves as though we're in a vehicle with that many windows around it. It's actually a pretty interesting effect. And where we're headed toward are these colonies of penguins. And after the title screen, we meet some of the babies specifically. And then our story concerns this egg, the last one to be hatched of the season. The egg is for the character Puck. Puck is going to be our main character, and there's a storm coming, so Puck and his parents have to get into shelter. And so that's where the movie leaves off, and we pick up going into the ice caves. That is their shelter as well. And so it's about us journeying into their world, their realm. That's why it's called Empire of the Penguin, because we're going where they are. You choose wild or mild, so there's 2 lines that split up somewhere around this large room here. And I do want to draw your attention in this large room to a design feature over on the side next to the mild line. And this is meant to be a hidden penguin. Not sure how easy that is to see, but you can trace the outlines of it. There's the beak facing off to the left, and there's the body, and there's the rest of the head. So this room is excitingly lit. We were stranded here for a couple of minutes, so I took a few extra photos while we were here. And then it's on forward into the actual queue room, the pre-show video itself, where Puck introduces us to his cave. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on here. There's more lighting going on behind these scalloped walls here as Puck kind of disappears, and we're invited out into the loading zone. You can see the vehicles here. There's 3 of them into the first room itself. And this is an exciting thing to step out in here and see the load vehicles. And they have multiple bays for the load vehicles, and then realize that they'll detach kind of one at a time and drift around in this area here through this central zone. And as you can see, there's no tracks in the floor. That's because these are trackless vehicles. They go where they're programmed to go at that moment. And it's a complicated dance. It's really a ballet. It's all computer driven. And it's an interesting thing to move around the room. We do that not only in this room, but in the next room as well, which has a bunch of other features, including this kind of frozen stalagmite waterfall in many different colors. So it's a pretty thing, and you go looking around different things around the room. I thought that was effective. There's some geysers here, steam geysers. There just isn't any really story part to this. It's just kind of exploring the realm of the penguin. And then we see another movie that kind of brings it home that the penguins are here, but when they're in the water, they're in danger from sea lions, and there's a bit of a chase scene here while we're sitting in the vehicles, until finally our character makes it up onto dry land, and we turn around with the vehicles and then see a version of what we just saw on screen behind glass at this moment. But then I'm looking backwards at the screen to show that there's kind of a mixture of physical sets and screen here. But then as we go forward from here, we get to the loading dock and then the penguins beyond. And I'm going to pause for a second to show you how warmly dressed the cast members are, because it is in fact 30 degrees or 32 degrees here. So you're not going to want to linger if you're not dressed warmly. Obviously you're not supposed to touch the penguins or take flash pictures. And this is what the penguin encounter looks like. So the guests are over on the side here, and the penguins are over here. It's open air. There's a little bit of a net right here. There's several spots where there's just glass. And the penguins could escape there if they just swam up and jumped over. In fact, they've done that a couple of times since the attraction has been opened, and they're slowly getting trained not to do that anymore. So as you can see, there's some of that glass that they can just hop right over. So it looks like you could reach out and touch a penguin. They're that close. Several of the design elements of this new exhibit for you to look at. And then the penguins themselves, there's over 100 of them, of a couple of different species in this room. It smells a little bit like penguin, as you could imagine. And then in the final showroom, you've got a couple of staircases. You can go down here and have a look at what the penguins are like in the water, because as we read, that's almost like them flying around while they're in the water themselves. And from there, it's back out to the souvenir shop. There's little pucks for sale, of course, and then the photos, which are not yet turned on and open, but once they are, they will be a photo in frame for $22. That takes us to the end of this week, and it's exciting to have a new attraction open at SeaWorld, where they've long needed a dark ride like this. I think it's a fantastic thing, especially once the lines get down from 3 hours closer to maybe 30 minutes. We'll be there all the time. Thanks again, as always, for stopping by, and we'll catch you next time.